The sun had barely begun to rise over the jagged desert cliffs of Vortan 9, casting a pale orange glow across the dry, rocky terrain. Jack, the old human cowboy, adjusted his wide-brimmed hat and wiped the sweat from his weathered face. Despite his age, his eyes still held the sharp focus of a man who had spent decades surviving in harsh lands. Years of dust, heat, and danger had carved lines into his skin, but they had also sharpened his instincts. He moved slowly but with purpose, his hand resting lightly on the worn leather of his holster, where his revolver still gleamed like it had when he was 30 years younger. Jack had come to this part of the planet on a simple mission: to find work, trade stories, and maybe teach a few humans and aliens alike a thing or two about surviving in the wild. Word of his skills had traveled far, carried on whispers of settlers and traders who had crossed paths with him. Many said he could ride any beast, fight off predators, and navigate through landscapes that would make younger men tremble. Some even said he had a way of thinking that seemed almost supernatural, predicting danger before it appeared. The settlement he approached was small, carved into the rocks themselves. Tents and wooden structures jutted out between the cliffs like a stubborn mark of human and alien perseverance. But it wasn't a purely human settlement. It belonged to the Takari, an Apache-like alien tribe known for their warrior skills and proud traditions. Their skin was a warm copper tone, their hair long and often tied with beads and feathers, and their eyes carried a depth of wisdom that spoke of centuries of survival. Jack dismounted from his pack beast, a tall, horse-like creature native to Vortan 9, its legs strong and sure over rocky ground. He patted its neck, murmuring softly to calm it as it snorted and stomped its hooves. He glanced up at the cliffs where the Takari watched silently, their eyes calculating, wary. Among them was Taya, a young warrior known for her skill with a spear and a bow. She had already made up her mind. This human was old, fragile, and probably useless. But Jack had learned long ago not to judge too quickly. He had faced things the young couldn't even imagine, and he knew how to survive. Even if the Takari doubted him, he could prove his worth in time. He walked toward the settlement slowly, hands visible and calm. The guards relaxed slightly but did not drop their weapons. Jack nodded politely, tipping his hat. "Name's Jack," he said. His voice was rough but steady, carrying the calm confidence of a man who had been tested by the universe itself. "Looking to trade, maybe help where I can." A tall elder stepped forward, his eyes narrow but cautious. He spoke in a low, deliberate voice that Jack had to strain to understand. The language was strange, full of clicks and soft hisses, but Jack had learned a few words in his travels. He nodded and tried to mimic the sounds. The elder raised an eyebrow, impressed despite himself. Taya, standing just behind the elder, whispered to herself as she watched Jack's deliberate movements. There was something in the way he carried himself, something strong and certain. "Such a capable old cowboy," she murmured under her breath. "Deserves to pass on his genes." She didn't intend for anyone to hear her, but the words lingered in her mind like a quiet truth she hadn't admitted yet. The morning passed with cautious greetings and exchanges. Jack traded some human goods, tools, dried food, and stories of faraway planets, for local supplies, fresh water, and maps of dangerous terrain. He listened carefully, asking questions about the desert's wildlife and its hidden dangers. He noticed subtle details others overlooked, tracks of predators, wind patterns, and areas where the rock was unstable. Suddenly, a loud scream shattered the calm morning. A creature, massive and multi-legged, charged from a nearby canyon, eyes glowing and mandibles clicking. The Takari warriors raised their weapons, but their movements were chaotic. They had fought predators before, but nothing quite like this. Jack didn't hesitate. He grabbed his revolver and fired, aiming carefully while moving toward the creature's flank. He had fought beasts like this before, both human and alien, and he knew their habits. The first shot grazed its thick hide, making it snarl. The warriors paused, watching in shock as Jack calmly loaded another round and took aim. He moved with precision, guiding the Takari to set traps and block escape routes. He shouted instructions, pointing out weaknesses in the creature's approach. The Takari obeyed, slowly realizing that this old human knew far more than anyone had guessed. Jack's strategy was flawless, his calmness infectious. Taya watched, stunned. His hands were steady, his eyes sharp, his mind working faster than the young warriors could follow. He coordinated them like a master, using both his experience and knowledge of the land. When the creature lunged, Jack dodged gracefully, firing a final shot that brought it down. For a moment there was silence. The warriors stared at him, and Taya felt her heart skip a beat. He was old, yes, but stronger than any of them had expected, not just in body but in mind and spirit. Her whispered words returned to her mind. Such a capable old cowboy deserves to pass on his genes. She couldn't deny it. The Takari elder stepped forward, nodding at Jack. "You have skill," he said simply. "You have saved lives today. We owe you respect," Jack nodded humbly. "I'm just doing what I've always done, helping people survive." As the sun climbed higher, Jack helped the tribe set traps around the settlement, repaired weak structures, and taught younger warriors basic survival skills he had learned over decades. He demonstrated how to move quietly across the desert, how to find water in places no one thought possible, and how to read the signs of the land. Taya followed him closely, asking questions and trying to understand how someone so old could be so capable. Jack answered patiently, sharing stories of distant worlds, wild beasts, and dangerous lands he had crossed. His stories were vivid, full of humor and wisdom, and they captivated everyone around him. By evening, the settlement had transformed. The Takari were more organized, confident, and prepared for the next danger. Taya, now openly observing Jack, realized she had misjudged him. He was more than a visitor. He was a teacher, a leader, and perhaps even a hero in their eyes. As night fell and the twin moons of Vorton 9 rose in the sky, Jack sat by a fire with Taya and a few young warriors. They listened to his stories, laughing at his jokes and marveling at his experiences. Taya felt a warm sense of respect and admiration growing in her heart. She knew that this old cowboy had more life, courage, and wisdom than most young warriors she had ever met. In the darkness beyond the firelight, shadows moved. Jack noticed them immediately, tracks of a new threat approaching the settlement. He didn't panic. Instead, he studied the signs, analyzing the terrain, predicting the enemy's approach. Taya watched, realizing that his mind was as sharp as his aim, if not sharper. This was just the beginning. Jack had proven himself once, but the desert held many dangers, and he would need every ounce of skill, courage, and ingenuity to protect the settlement and earn the trust of the tribe fully. The stars above hinted at adventures yet to come, and Taya silently knew that her whispered words were not just admiration. They were a truth she might one day admit aloud. Jack leaned back, feeling the fire's warmth on his face. He was old, yes, but far from finished. And on this distant world, among strange creatures and proud alien warriors, he would show what it truly meant to be human, resourceful, courageous, and capable of facing any challenge the universe could throw at him. The night was quiet now, but Jack's mind was already planning, observing, and preparing. He had survived countless dangers in his lifetime, and Vorton 9 was no different. The desert was harsh, the creatures were fierce, and the stakes were high, but he was ready, and in the quiet moments, Taya watched him from across the fire, heart racing. Realizing that the capable old cowboy was more than a legend, he was living proof of what humans could achieve, even when the odds were impossible. The desert night was alive with sounds. The wind whispered through jagged rocks, carrying faint echoes of movement in the distance. Jack, the old cowboy, sat quietly by the fire, listening carefully. Years of experience had taught him that danger often came when one least expected it. He noticed subtle shifts in the sand, faint impressions of claws and hooves, and the way the moonlight reflected on the jagged stones. There was something approaching, something dangerous. Taya, sitting across from him, could not hide her unease. She had spent her life learning to read the desert, yet she realized she had underestimated Jack. His eyes were sharp, scanning every shadow, every movement. He spoke softly, almost to himself. "We've got company. And they're smart." The young warriors nearby tensed, gripping their weapons. Jack rose slowly, moving with surprising agility for a man of his age. "Listen to me," he said, his voice calm but commanding. "We're going to set traps, block their paths, and protect the settlement. Follow my lead." The Takari warriors exchanged glances, impressed but slightly hesitant. Jack had proven himself once, but this was a larger threat, an off-world mercenary gang known for raiding settlements. They were fast, ruthless, and well-armed. Many had thought Jack too old to face them, yet here he stood, ready. Jack led them out of the settlement, moving across the rocks with careful precision. He instructed the young warriors where to place tripwires, where to dig shallow pits, and how to camouflage them. He taught them to move silently, to communicate with hand signals and to anticipate the enemy's actions. Taya followed closely, absorbing every instruction, amazed at his knowledge and strategy. As they worked, Jack shared small pieces of wisdom. The best defense isn't always fighting head-on. Sometimes it's patience. Sometimes it's making them think they're in control while you decide the real moves. Taya listened, fascinated. She realized that Jack's skills went far beyond physical strength. His mind was a weapon as sharp as any spear. Hours passed. The desert wind carried the sound of distant engines. The mercenaries were coming. Jack signaled the warriors to take their positions. He checked the traps, adjusted angles, and even climbed to higher ground to get a better view. His revolver rested comfortably at his side, but he had other plans. Jack had studied these mercenaries before. He knew they relied on speed and intimidation. If they underestimated the settlement, it would be their mistake. The first group of mercenaries appeared just as the twin moons reached their highest point. Jack's eyes narrowed. He counted their numbers, analyzed their approach, and whispered instructions to the warriors. The traps worked perfectly. The first attackers fell into pits ensnared by tripwires. Confusion spread among the mercenaries, giving the Takari an advantage. Jack moved through the battlefield like a shadow. He fired carefully, never wasting a shot. When one mercenary aimed at Taya, he was already there, blocking the attack with a swift movement that belied his age. Taya's heart raced, a mixture of fear and admiration. She realized that this old cowboy was more than a protector. He was their anchor, their leader, and their inspiration. The battle raged for hours. The mercenaries were clever, adapting to the traps and attacking from multiple directions. Jack countered with strategies the warriors had never seen. He used the terrain, forcing the enemies into narrow passes where their numbers were useless. He instructed Taya to lead small groups, flanking the attackers while he disrupted their main force. Through the chaos, Jack's calm presence kept everyone focused. The younger warriors followed his lead, their fear replaced by determination. Taya noticed how he moved, not with the reckless energy of youth, but with the precision of experience. Every movement was deliberate, every action calculated. He had faced death many times before, and now it seemed almost natural to him. Finally, the mercenaries were cornered. They had underestimated the settlement, and Jack's strategy had outmaneuvered them at every turn. The remaining attackers surrendered, realizing they could not win. Jack walked among them, his revolver still ready, and spoke clearly. "Leave, never return. You are not welcome here." The defeated mercenaries fled, leaving the settlement in peace. The Takari erupted in cheers, celebrating their survival and the cunning of the human who had led them. Taya approached Jack, her eyes shining with respect. You are incredible," she said. "I thought you were old, but you are stronger and smarter than anyone I have ever met." Jack smiled faintly, tipping his hat. "Age doesn't mean weakness," he said. "It means experience. It means knowing what to do when danger comes." Over the following days, Jack helped the Takari rebuild what had been damaged. He trained the younger warriors, teaching them both human and alien survival techniques. He shared knowledge about weaponry, tracking, and strategy. Slowly, the settlement became stronger, more prepared, and more confident. Taya spent more time with Jack, learning from him and observing his ways. She asked questions about his past, about the worlds he had seen, and about the creatures he had faced. Jack answered patiently, sharing stories full of humor, danger, and wisdom. Taya realized that her admiration had grown into something deeper. She felt a connection with him that went beyond respect. It was trust, fascination, and perhaps even something closer to affection. One evening, as they watched the twin moons reflect on the desert sands, Taya spoke softly. "I said before, such a capable old cowboy deserves to pass on his genes. I wasn't wrong." Jack chuckled, shaking his head. "I've lived a long life, Taya, but the real value isn't in passing on genes. It's in passing on knowledge, courage, and the will to survive." She smiled, understanding. "And you've done that for all of us." For me, the bond between them grew stronger with each passing day. Jack became not just a hero, but a symbol of humanity's resilience, showing that even in a galaxy filled with dangers and alien worlds, human ingenuity, courage, and wisdom could prevail. The Takari accepted him fully, not just as a visitor, but as a leader, teacher, and friend. Months passed, and the settlement thrived. Jack's lessons had strengthened the warriors, and his strategies had prepared them for future threats. Taya often stood beside him, learning, assisting, and sharing in the quiet moments when the desert was calm. She watched him handle challenges with patience, humor, and determination. She realized that Jack's true gift was not just his skill in combat, but his ability to inspire those around him to be better, braver, and smarter. One morning, Jack stood at the edge of a cliff looking over the vast desert. The wind whipped through his hair and the sun glinted off the rocks. Taya approached quietly, standing beside him. "You've changed everything here," she said. "Not just by fighting, but by showing us what humans can do." Jack nodded slowly. "We have to leave a mark, Taya. Not just survive, but teach, guide, and protect. That's what it means to be human." She looked at him, admiration clear in her eyes. "And maybe leave a little legacy while we're at it." Jack smiled, a rare warmth in his eyes. "That's the plan." Together, they turned back toward the settlement, ready for whatever challenges the desert or the universe might throw at them next. Jack had proven that age was not a limit, that wisdom and courage were as powerful as youth and strength. Taya knew that he was extraordinary, and that Takari knew that this human cowboy had become more than a visitor. He had become part of their world, a living legend, and a symbol of what humanity could achieve among the stars. As the twin moons rose once again over Vortan 9, Jack led the warriors through training exercises, survival drills, and strategies to keep their home safe. The desert had tested them, but with him guiding them, they were ready for anything. And in the quiet moments between battles, Taya would watch him, her thoughts echoing the words she had whispered long ago. Such a capable old cowboy deserves to pass on his genes. But now, she understood that his true gift was far greater. He passed on more than strength, he passed on courage, knowledge, and hope. And in a galaxy filled with uncertainty, those were gifts worth more than anything else. Jack may have been old, but he was far from finished. The desert, the stars, and the future awaited him, and he would face them all with the same skill, wisdom, and determination that had guided him his entire life. And so, under the twin moons of Vortan 9, the legend of Jack, the old cowboy, grew a story of human resilience, courage, and the power to inspire even the most skeptical of alien warriors. The end of one battle marked the beginning of a new chapter. Jack had shown the Takari what humans were capable of. He had shown Taya what bravery, wisdom, and persistence could achieve. And together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, proving that even in the far reaches of the galaxy, humanity could leave a lasting mark.